Hi everyone, I'm Donna from What the Redhead Said. We quite often get asked, when people hear our children's names for the first time, how we thought of their names. Choosing baby names is such a massive responsibility that I thought it might be quite interesting really, just to talk to you about how we came up with their names, why we chose them, and the kind of names that we didn't want to call them and the reasons behind everything. When I first found out I was pregnant, the most scary part was trying to decide on a name. I had a boy's name picked out straight away, but we didn't find out the sex of either baby. For me, it's the last true surprise in life, and I just can't imagine finding out during pregnancy whether I was having a boy or a girl. I think the suspense and the surprise for those 9 months, it's amazing, and it wouldn't be right for us to find out, but I completely understand why other people find out. And I think knowing what you're having and being able to pick a name and plan everything so much better, I can completely understand why people do find out, but it just wasn't something for us. So because we didn't find out with either baby, we had to have a boy's name and a girl's name ready. I'm just so glad we didn't have twins, because we would have had to have 4 names ready. Wow. Our daughter is called Athena, and when we were pregnant with her, we had Athena for a girl and Noah for a boy. Noah was easy for me because it's a name that I just loved completely. I'd loved it for quite a while, and I liked its biblical connections, even though I'm not religious at all. I liked that. So it was quite a strong name, but it took us longer to come up with Athena. So when we were pregnant, we had kind of criteria for naming our babies. So I'm Donna, my husband's David. So we didn't want another D name, because then we thought if the baby had siblings later on, we'd have to just stick to D names, otherwise there'd be an odd one out. So we wanted something different to a D name. Our last name, Wishart, we didn't want another W name, because it would be like William Wishart, a bit like William Wallace, and I think it's just a bit too much of a mouthful, really. We also didn't want a name that you could abbreviate. David is Dave. To everyone apart from family, he's Dave. And quite a lot of people get called something that isn't actually their name, and I just think it's nice to have a name that you just get called by forever. So I wanted the children to have names that you can't abbreviate, and then we needed a name that we really loved, and we looked everywhere for a name and couldn't find one for her at all. And then I was laying in bed one night and I thought, ooh, there's a goddess name that I really love. What is it? And I just couldn't think of it. So I looked on my phone at one of the baby name websites and couldn't find it at all. But then Athena just jumped into my head. And it was the first name where I'd said to Dave, what do you think of Athena? And he turned around and said, that's a beautiful name. And every other name he'd been like, yeah, it's okay. And I didn't want just an okay name for our children. I wanted them to have names that we loved and that really suited them. So that was it, really. Athena was Athena from the minute I said that name. Although, nearer her birth, I got wobbles, name wobbles. I think a lot of people get wobbles with names and are unsure about them. We didn't tell anyone our choices for baby names until after both of them were born, because we wanted their name to be their name. We didn't want to say, oh, this is what we're calling the baby, and the baby to not be here yet, and for people to say, I don't like it, and to make us not like the name as much, and for us to then question it and worry that we should really be calling them something different. So we waited till they were born to announce their names, but just before that, I was worried that Athena might be a bit too different. Everyone that we know has really got pretty traditional names, and so I thought they might think that Athena was a bit strange. And then I thought, when Athena grows up, she might find it a bit strange. But now, having had her, I know that her name actually isn't that different at all, really, and people don't question it. They don't even double take. It's just her name, and it's a beautiful name. But we did give her a more traditional middle name because the first name was so different. So her middle name is Catherine, but with a K and a Y. So still a little bit different, but I think Athena Catherine goes nicely together. Her name now that she's 5.5, her name really suits her. It's quite a strong name for a baby. Athena is the Greek goddess of wisdom and war, intellectual war as well, so quite clever war. And I did worry that we were giving a baby such a big name. Like, that's quite big shoes to fill, really, being named after a Greek goddess. But she suits it perfectly. She is strong, she is intelligent, she's articulate, she knows so many words and has such an amazing vocabulary, and she is just beautiful. It really suits her completely. But then, when we found out we were pregnant again, we hadn't even considered sibling names when we chose Athena's name. That was just her name, and we never even thought of what's going to go with it. So naming her brother was a lot harder. It's definitely harder naming subsequent babies than it is naming the first. The first, you've got all those names to pick from, but then suddenly with the second, you've got a lot less choice. So we didn't find out again whether we were having a boy or a girl. And I don't know where it came from, but our girl name was always Celeste. I thought Athena and Celeste went really nicely together, and I just really liked it. I thought it was timeless, classic. It went really nicely. I thought Celeste Wishart went quite nicely. Celeste Elizabeth Wishart it was going to be. But then we had a boy. And I never really had a boy name that I loved. There was not a boy name that I thought, wow, that is it. We couldn't use Noah this time because that was Athena's boy name, and I wanted her to keep that as her boy name, so that when she grows up and says to us, Mummy, if I was a boy, what were you going to call me? I didn't want her to say, actually, we used it for your brother. I wanted her to have that as hers. So we had to think of another boy name. Again, it couldn't begin with a D, it couldn't begin with a W, and we couldn't abbreviate it. And so we went through all of Greek history and gods and Roman history and everything, and the only name that we could think of was Troy, and that's his name. And it wasn't a name that I was madly in love with, but it was a name that went really well. I thought Athena and Troy sounded perfect together, and when he was born, that was his name, and we knew that was his name from the minute he was born, and it suited him perfectly. He was Troy, and Athena had a baby brother, Troy, and from that minute I loved it because it was his name, and he's grown into it perfectly as well. It just suits him. It's different, it's not too different. Again, we gave him a more traditional middle name, so he's Troy Alexander, and I thought he needed a longer middle name to go with such short first name. This might sound like we've overthought it quite a lot, but a lot of thought does go into naming babies, doesn't it? It's such a huge responsibility. But I can't imagine ever having a third baby, purely because we'd never be able to name it. It would be a nameless baby, because we would never be able to find a name that went with Athena and Troy. I think they are just made to be a duo, just meant to be the two of them, Athena, Troy, job done. Their names suit them perfectly, but they were so hard to choose, and naming siblings is definitely harder than naming your first. If you like this video and like listening to me ramble on, click the thumbs up down below and subscribe, and I'll come back to ramble about something else very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.